So today's lecture will be on enzyme inhibition. This is the disclaimer that it is meant for you and it should not be used for any other purpose, copied or posted on any site without the permission of author. Some of the pictures in the presentation have been taken from public domain websites or popular books to make the topic easy to understand, and the credit for such pictures remain with the original publisher. Okay, the question that comes first is, what is meant by an enzyme inhibitor? So enzyme inhibitor are molecules which bind to an enzyme and interfere with catalysis. So this is a very broad definition, that they will bind to enzyme, they can bind to the active site or substrate binding site, or they can bind to some other site. But what is the net effect? That their binding, it interfere with the catalysis. It slows down or totally halts the enzymatic reaction. And such molecules are called as enzyme inhibitors. So this is a broad definition of enzyme inhibitors, that they are the molecules which bind to enzyme either at the substrate binding site or at some other site, and as a result they slow down or they totally halt, stop the enzymatic reaction. They are called as enzyme inhibitors. Okay, for example, so you have enzyme, this is the active site of the enzyme, substrate comes and bind under normal course of action. This is the substrate binding site, so substrate comes and bind, forming an ES complex, which subsequently dissociates, giving back the enzyme, and the product is formed, right? This is the normal enzyme catalyzed reaction. What happens? An inhibitor is a molecule which can bind to the substrate binding site. Only one case has been shown over here, that the inhibitor is binding to the substrate binding site. But I told you that inhibitor can bind to some other site also. So you have an enzyme inhibitor complex, and further reactions stops. Okay, there is no product formed. So it either slows down or it totally stops the enzyme catalyzed reaction. Such molecules are called as enzyme inhibitors. Now, enzyme inhibitor, obviously they lower down the activity of enzymatic reaction. Okay, they will slow down that enzyme catalyzed reaction, or they will stop the enzyme catalyzed reaction. They inhibit, as I said, either the formation of the ES complex, if they bind to the active site, to the substrate binding site, naturally substrate cannot bind. So they prevent the formation of either ES complex or its further breakdown into product. If they do not bind to it, ES complex can be formed, but its further breakdown into product will not take place if the inhibitor molecule is binding to a site other than the substrate binding site. Obviously, many such enzyme inhibitors are toxins of either plant origin or animal origin. So they will bind to enzyme and they will prevent that particular enzyme catalyzed reaction. Or they have been exploited, there are molecules which are being used as drugs. So they also inhibit a particular enzyme catalyzed reaction. So drugs used to prepare medicine in pharmaceutical industry. So they are either toxin of plant or animal origin, or they are molecules which are being used as drugs. For example, penicillin, inhibit the enzyme transpeptidase. Penicillin is an antibiotic which is very commonly used, broad spectrum antibiotic. So what happens in gram-positive bacteria? This is the bacterial cell wall. This cell wall is made up of parallel layers of peptidoglycan, a polymer of sugars. Peptidoglycan layers are there. This peptidoglycan layer is made up of alternating units of N-acetyl-muramic acid and N-acetyl glucosamine. These are two amino sugars. So you have N-acetyl glucosamine followed by N-acetyl-muramic acid followed by NAG followed by NAM. So you have alternating units of NAM and NAG, and you have parallel layers of these peptidoglycan. This is also called as murine. And then in N-acetyl-muramic acid you have a peptide chain. This peptide chain, it can be made up of 3 amino acid to 5 amino acid. tripeptide, tetrapeptide, or pentapeptide. And this peptide chain of two adjacent peptidoglycan layers then cross bridges, forms a covalent bond like this. This covalent bond, this cross-linking between the peptide chain plays a very important role because it provides the mechanical strength or rigidity to the cell wall. What penicillin does is, penicillin binds to the enzyme transpeptidase. It inhibits this is penicillin molecule, and this is the transpeptidase subunit of that of the enzyme. So it binds to it and it prevents this cross-linkage formation. This cross-linkage formation is prevented, and as a result of that, the cell wall doesn't acquire the mechanical strength. It becomes susceptible, because the primary role of cell wall is to maintain the what you can say osmotic pressure. So it maintains the shape. So if the cell wall is not rigid, then the bacteria becomes susceptible for lysis. So this is how inhibitor molecules have been exploited as drugs. Now, how do we understand this inhibitor? There are two broad groups you can make of inhibitors. And what are those? That you have inhibitors which are reversible, and you have inhibitors which are irreversible. Enzyme inhibition which is irreversible. Reversible inhibitors, they are loosely bound with the enzyme and dissociate quickly from target enzyme. They will dissociate quickly from the target enzyme. Their binding to the enzyme is reversible. Okay. Whereas in case of irreversible inhibitors, they are tightly bound with the enzyme and dissociate very slowly from the target enzyme. Right? They dissociate very slowly from the target enzyme. This S should not be there. This S should also not be there. Right? From the target enzyme. So in case of reversible enzyme inhibition, we have three subclasses. What is called as competitive inhibition, non-competitive inhibition, and uncompetitive inhibition. Okay. And in case of irreversible inhibition, there is only one subclass, that is called as suicide inactivator. So let us understand all these one by one. So let us first start with the competitive inhibition. Now the characteristic of competitive inhibitor is that it is structurally similar to the true substrate. Please understand, structurally very close, very similar to the true substrate of the enzyme. And because of this structural similarity, what does it do? It competes with the substrate binding site. The actual substrate or the true substrate of the enzyme as well as the inhibitor molecule, they are structurally very same, identical. Okay, and as a result of that, there is a competition between the two, means the substrate and the inhibitor for the active site or the substrate binding site. Okay, for example, this is the substrate binding site, and this is the structure of the substrate, and this is the structure of the inhibitor. So these two look very similar, identical, and as a result of this, these two molecules compete for the same site, and therefore the name competitive inhibitor. Okay, so when the inhibitor binds, what it will do? It will dislodge the substrate. But when you have very high concentration of substrate, naturally substrate molecules will overpower the inhibitor and they will occupy the substrate binding site once again. Please understand, when you have very high concentration of substrate vis-a-vis the concentration of inhibitor, what is going to happen? The substrate is going to overpower the inhibitor and it will dislodge the inhibitor and it will occupy the substrate binding site. So when the substrate binds, you get enzyme substrate complex formation, and when the inhibitor binds, you get enzyme inhibitor complex formation. So the general reaction for this is shown over here. So you have enzyme plus substrate, you have enzyme substrate complex formation, which subsequently dissociates to give product and the enzyme is recovered back. But if the inhibitor binds to it, so you get enzyme inhibitor complex formation and it cannot be further dissociated, so you will not have product formation. So how do you identify competitive inhibition? Competitive inhibition can be identified by plotting the double reciprocal plot. What happens in competitive inhibition? When a competitive inhibitor binds, the reaction rate decreases. And it decreases proportionately. When the inhibitor concentration increases, the reaction rate proportionately decreases. So with the increase in the inhibitor concentration, the reaction rate will decrease further. The inhibition can be reversed, as I told you earlier, that when you have higher concentration of substrate, then it will overpower the inhibitor molecule, and the inhibition of the enzyme, the competitive inhibition of the enzyme can be relieved by increasing the substrate concentration. So this is very characteristic. So if you increase the concentration of substrate, as I said, it will overpower the inhibitor, and the enzyme inhibition can be relieved. In competitive inhibition, the characteristic is that the value of Vmax doesn't change. Okay, value of Vmax doesn't change, but the value of Km changes. Value of Km changes. So in presence of a competitive inhibitor, the value of Km in fact increases. And the altered value of Km, the changed value of Km is called as Km apparent. Km apparent, and it is numerically equal to, Km apparent is equal to the Km into bracket 1 plus I by Ki, where I is the concentration of inhibitor that you have used. So depending upon the concentration of inhibitor, the Km is going to change. Higher the concentration of inhibitor, higher is going to be the Km. And Ki is another constant. It is the dissociation constant for the enzyme inhibitor complex. It is the dissociation constant of the enzyme inhibitor complex. So competitive inhibition can be very easily identified with the help of double reciprocal plot. So what is being done? You have the substrate concentration, you vary the substrate concentration, and you take reciprocal of that, and at different substrate concentration, you measure the initial velocity and you take reciprocal of that. And what do you get? You get a straight line like this. This is the 1 minus 1 over Km, right? Under the condition where there is no inhibitor present. But when you have inhibitor present, this blue line, okay, you repeat the same experiment at a fixed concentration of inhibitor, say X, right? Same experiment is repeated, and then you measure the initial velocity in presence of fixed concentration of inhibitor. Then you plot the line. So this line and the previous line, the light green, when there was no inhibitor present, both of them intersect the y-axis at the same point. So that means the Vmax doesn't change, but the Km changes. So it is intersecting the x-axis here. So there is an increase in the Km. You further increase the concentration of inhibitor, you make it 2x, right? You repeat the same experiment and you again find out the initial velocity. You plot the graph, you find that this line is again intersecting the y-axis at the same point as that of the x line and no inhibitor line, but it intercept the x-axis at a different point. There is a further increase in the Km. So Km, what we are referring to as apparent Km, increases proportionately, okay, with the increase in the concentration of the competitive inhibitor, right? Whereas the Vmax remain unchanged. This is characteristic number 1. Characteristic number 2 is that competitive inhibition of an enzyme can be relieved by simply increasing the concentration of substrate as compared to the concentration of the inhibitor. Okay, because both of them are competing for the same site, and if you have a very high concentration of the substrate, obviously these substrate molecules, they are going to overpower the inhibitor molecules, and they will dislodge the inhibitor molecule from the active site of the enzyme. So for example, we have given one example of the competitive inhibition. You have this TCA cycle reaction where, succinate is getting converted to fumarate. This is succinate substrate and it is getting converted to fumarate. And the reaction is catalyzed by an enzyme called succinate dehydrogenase. See the structure of the succinate. So you see the functional group. There are 2 carboxyl groups. And this is the competitive inhibitor of succinate dehydrogenase, malonate. So it also has got these two carboxyl groups, carboxylic acid groups, not carboxyl, carboxylic acid groups, COO groups. Okay, so structurally very similar. You have malonate, you have oxaloacetate, in fact even oxalate. All these can, because they look structurally very close to the actual substrate of the enzyme, so they can competitively inhibit this particular enzyme succinate dehydrogenase. So this is a classical example of competitive inhibition. Now, competitive inhibition has been used clinically in therapeutics. For example, you have drugs, statins. This is a class of drugs, statins. Atorvastatin, simvastatin, these are the individual drugs in this particular group. What do? They competitively inhibit a very key enzyme in the cholesterol biosynthesis, HMG-CoA reductase, hydroxymethyl butyryl coenzyme A reductase. This is a key enzyme in the cholesterol biosynthesis, and it is getting competitively inhibited by a group of drugs called statins. These statins are observed. These statins are obtained from fungal sources. Aspergillus niger is a very good source. So as a result of that, what happens? It causes decrease in the plasma cholesterol level. Okay, because endogenous cholesterol biosynthesis is affected, and it leads to decrease in plasma cholesterol level. So these statins, these are being very commonly used as anti-hyperlipidemic agents. Okay, drugs which cause decrease in the cholesterol level, very commonly used world over. Allopurinol, this is another competitive inhibitor. This competitively inhibits xanthine oxidase, and it is very prescribed under a condition called gout. Methotrexate, this is another compound which competitively inhibit what? Dihydrofolate reductase. This is the enzyme, and this is being given, prescribed in some type of cancer. Okay, dicumarol, this is a vitamin K analog. So what does it do? It inhibits an enzyme, vitamin K epoxide reductase. Okay, and it is being given as an anticoagulant. Okay, so before in patients where there are issues with the blood clotting, this anticoagulant is being given. The second category that comes is the non-competitive inhibition. So non-competitive inhibition, inhibitor binds to enzyme at a site other than the active site. So I told you inhibitor can bind to substrate binding site, or it can bind to a site other than the substrate binding site. So in case of non-competitive inhibitor, it doesn't bind to the active site of the enzyme. This is the active site of the enzyme, so substrate binding site, so substrate will come and bind here. But inhibitor binds to a site other than the substrate binding site. So this is a site for inhibitor binding. So inhibitor molecule comes and bind. But when inhibitor binds, the resulting EIS complex, it is non-productive. It cannot be hydrolyzed further, or if it hydrolyzes at a very slow pace. So the product formation slows down, or it can be inhibited also completely. Structure of inhibitor is different. Please understand, it's not similar. It is different than the substrate structure. It affects the catalytic activity of the enzyme as well as the substrate binding. Okay, if it binds to the enzyme first, then it will affect the substrate binding, and if it binds to the enzyme substrate complex formation, means after the binding of the substrate, it affects the catalytic activity of the enzyme. So a non-competitive inhibitor affects both the catalytic activity as well as the substrate binding. For example, so you have enzyme plus substrate forming enzyme substrate complex, giving you product and enzyme. This is normal course. That non-competitive inhibitor can bind to the free enzyme, forming an EI complex, thereby affecting the substrate binding. Or it can bind to the enzyme substrate complex also, forming an ESI complex, affecting the catalytic activity. In both the cases, no product is formed, or the product formation slows down. How do you identify this? This also can be identified by the double reciprocal plot. Reaction rate decreases in presence of inhibitor, and just as a inhibitor concentration will increase, the reaction rate will decrease. It is not affected by the concentration of the substrate. Unlike competitive inhibition, where we have seen that increasing the substrate concentration can relieve the competitive inhibition. That's not the case over here. Increase the substrate concentration, you increase the substrate concentration here, it doesn't affect the non-competitive inhibition. The value of Km remains constant here. See the characteristic thing. The value of Km doesn't change, while the value of Vmax changes. The altered value of Vmax is called as Vmax apparent. So how do you do it? You initially, the first set of experiment you do in the absence of inhibitor. So you have substrate concentration, different substrate concentration on this side. You measure the initial velocity, take reciprocal of both and plot a graph. This is the line, you get the light green. Okay. So intercept on the y-axis is Vmax, 1 over Vmax, and intercept on x-axis basically is the 1 over Km. All right. Now you take X concentration of inhibitor, non-competitive inhibitor. You repeat the experiment, you find out that it is intercepting the y-axis at a different place, but it intercepts the x-axis at the same point. It can intercept at the x-axis or it can intercept somewhere in between, like here it is shown. Yeah, ideal inhibitor should, all these lines should converge over here. Okay, this rather falls under what is called as mixed type of inhibition. But anyway, for the sake of understanding, you can understand it this way, that all the lines will converge here at the x-axis. That means the Km will not change. You further increase the concentration, there will be a further decrease in the Vmax, but the Km will remain constant. So this is a characteristic of non-competitive inhibition, that the Km doesn't change, Vmax changes, number one. Number two, that non-competitive inhibition cannot be relieved by simply increasing the substrate concentration. This is something different from what we have seen in case of competitive inhibition. Some examples of non-competitive inhibition. It's quite common in biological system. Heavy metals, argin, particularly mercury and lead. What do? They bind to cystenyl groups, sulfidal groups of the cysteine amino acid of some of the enzymes. Okay, and they will competitively inhibit those enzymes. Pepstatin is a non-competitive inhibitor of enzyme pepsin. Soybean trypsin inhibitor, a trypsin inhibitor which is obtained from soybean. Okay, it non-competitively inhibits trypsin, enzyme trypsin. Okay, ethanol or narcotic drugs, they non-competitively inhibit enzyme called acid phosphatase. So we have also worked on these non-competitive inhibitors of both plant as well as microbial origin, inhibiting the amylase, digestive enzyme amylase, inhibiting the digestive enzyme protease. Okay. So non-competitive inhibition of enzymes is very common in biological system. There are two characteristics. One is that the Km doesn't change, and second is it cannot be relieved by increasing the concentration of the substrate. The third one is called as uncompetitive inhibition. The inhibitor doesn't bind to free enzyme here. Please understand. In case of uncompetitive inhibition, the third category, the third subclass of reversible type of inhibitors, the inhibitor binds only to the enzyme substrate complex. It doesn't bind to the free enzyme. Okay. It does not bind to the free enzyme, it binds only to the enzyme substrate complex. So you have enzyme, substrate binds to it, you have enzyme substrate complex formed, and then only inhibitor can bind. In the previous case, in the preceding case, what happened? The inhibitor could bind to the free enzyme as well as the enzyme substrate complex. Here, the inhibitor can bind only to enzyme substrate complex, and as a result of that, it slows down the rate of reaction. Decomposition of this ESI complex is comparatively slow. The structure of inhibitor is different. It's not similar, identical to the true substrate. It affects the catalytic activity of enzyme, okay, but it doesn't affect the substrate binding. Please understand, it affects the catalytic activity but does not affect the substrate binding. Substrate can bind as usual, but once the inhibitor binds, the further processing stops, so it therefore affects the catalytic activity. The reaction is like this. So you have enzyme plus substrate forming enzyme substrate complex, and to this only inhibitor can bind, forming an ESI complex, leading to no product formation or formation of product take place rather slowly. Here product formation takes place at a normal rate. So how do you identify this? Reaction rate in this case also decreases with the increase in the concentration of the inhibitor. It is also not affected by increasing the substrate concentration. In this case, both Km and Vmax changes. Okay, and the changed value, altered values of Vmax and Km are called as Vmax apparent and Km apparent respectively. And this type of inhibition is rather uncommon in biological system. So you can very easily identify this by double reciprocal plot. You have a double reciprocal plot between the substrate concentration and the initial velocity. In the absence of inhibitor, this light green line, this is Vmax, 1 over Vmax, this is 1 over Km here, right? So in presence of X concentration of inhibitor, uncompetitive inhibitor, it intersects the Y-axis at a different point and it intercepts the X-axis at a different point. Okay, so both the Vmax changes and the Km also changes. You increase the concentration further, you see the Vmax further changes, the Km also changes. So what doesn't change under this condition is the slope, because the Km and the Vmax both are changing at the same rate, at the same proportion. As a result of that, the ratio of Km over Vmax or slope value doesn't change. So in case of competitive inhibition, Vmax did not change. In case of non-competitive inhibition, Km did not change. And in case of uncompetitive inhibition, which is rather uncommon, the slope of this particular, what you can say, graph, it doesn't change. For example, shown over here. So you have competitive inhibition. What changes? Km. What remains constant? Vmax. Right? In case of non-competitive inhibition, what changes? Vmax. What doesn't change? Km. In case of uncompetitive inhibition, what changes? Both Km and Vmax. And what remains constant? The slope of the graph remains constant. So this particular table you should remember, you should memorize. All right, so we'll switch over to the next class of these inhibitors. They are called as irreversible inhibitors. So what do irreversible inhibitors do? These inhibitor molecules, they bind tightly, they bind covalently, and they destroy an important functional group required for the activity of the enzyme. First thing is that they bind very tightly, covalently to the enzyme, and they will destroy one or more than one important functional groups which are essential for the catalytic activity of the enzyme. These type of inhibitors, they serve as useful tool in determining the reaction mechanism or the amino acid which are present at the active site. For example, inhibition of chymotrypsin. Chymotrypsin is a digestive enzyme by DIFP, diisopropyl fluorophosphate, abbreviated as DIFP. Diisopropyl fluorophosphate, it has helped in identifying the amino acid which is present at the active site of this enzyme chymotrypsin. What was found out is that it binds to amino acid serine positioned at 195. Serine 195. Okay, and when DIFP covalently binds to it, tightly binds to this, the catalytic activity of chymotrypsin gets affected. So it indicated what? It indicated that serine 195 is an essential component, is an essential amino acid at the active site of the enzyme chymotrypsin. So these irreversible inhibitors, they served as useful tool in determining the reaction mechanism or active site amino acid. For example, in case of chymotrypsin, it was found out using DIFP that serine 195 is one of the amino acid which is present at the active site. There is a special class of irreversible inhibitors, and they are called as suicide inhibitors. Suicide inhibitors. So they are unreactive. Please understand, they are unreactive until they bind to the active site of the enzyme. Till the time they bind to the substrate binding site or catalytic site or active site of the enzyme, they remain unreactive. But once they bind, rather than forming a product, they get converted to a highly reactive metabolite, which binds irreversibly with the enzyme. Okay. So they are called as suicide inhibitors. उसका एक दूसरा नाम भी है mechanism based inhibitors. So they are also called as mechanism based inhibitors. Mechanism based inhibitors. They play a very important role in rational drug design. Okay, for example, African sleeping sickness, a kind of disease in Africa. African sleeping sickness caused by trypanosomas or trypanosomes. It can be cured by inhibiting a key enzyme, ornithine decarboxylase, by decarboxylase. This is a key enzyme of polyamine biosynthesis. Ornithine decarboxylase is one of the important enzymes of polyamine biosynthesis. The polyamines, there are two of them, spermine and spermidine. Sorry. They are required in large quantities for DNA packaging by rapidly dividing cells of the parasite trypanosomes. So when you inhibit this polyamine biosynthesis, obviously this will not be available for DNA packaging and the cell division is going to be affected. So this is how the trypanosomes population is kept under control by using a irreversible inhibitor of ornithine decarboxylase. What is that irreversible inhibitor? That irreversible inhibitor, also called as the suicide inhibitor, is difluoromethyl-ornithine. Difluoromethyl-ornithine. What does it do? It binds to this stable key enzyme of the parasite. The enzyme in the parasite is rather stable and prevents biosynthesis of polyamines. It binds and irreversibly inhibits ornithine decarboxylase. Difluoromethyl-ornithine, it binds irreversibly to this enzyme ornithine decarboxylase, and that is how it affects the polyamine biosynthesis. Biosynthesis of spermine and spermidine is affected, so they are not available for DNA packaging, so cell division is going to be affected. In humans, however, the enzyme is rather unstable. It undergoes rapid turnover. It is rapidly degraded and new enzyme is synthesized in humans. Whereas in case of trypanosomes, this enzyme is rather stable. Okay, it doesn't undergo rapid turnover. As a result of that, the polyamine biosynthesis is affected. But in case of humans, since the enzyme is unstable, it gets rapidly turned over, so it remains unaffected. So using this difluoromethyl-ornithine, a irreversible inhibitor of enzyme ornithine decarboxylase, African sleeping sickness has been brought under control. So this is one good example how irreversible inhibitors can be used as drug, can be used as therapeutic agents. So that's all. Thank you very much.